Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. Today we are in Forever Skies. This is a fairly new game. It's been out, I believe, for about 2 years in early access. So it has just now, April 15, gone over to version 1.0, so release access. Or release version. So actually a pretty fun game. I am currently pretty much end game. There's not a whole lot left for me to do. I've done all the discoveries I can. I've found all the data pads I can, at least that I know about. And so it's kind of roaming through the world. There's like murals and stuff like that that are new. So I have not found all of those, but other than finding little tidbits that are brand new in version 1.0. That's about it. So I've finished the main quest line, if you will. I've done, in fact, both the optional endings. So that's kind of interesting how to accomplish that. You basically have to save your game, copy your save game, and then actually come in and do it. So there are achievements for both directions that you might go, but for what that's worth. So this is really the end game. So really at this point all I can do is build on my airship, which there's only so much of that you can do. But the nutshell today is I'm basically giving you a tour of my airship. So obviously you can go 100 different directions in what you do with your airship. For me, this is following pretty much the same design that I've done on really, other than my first playthrough, which was more experimental on, okay, how does this game work? There was a lot of experimenting, and the second playthrough, the third playthrough, and this now the fourth playthrough, really just figuring out how everything works. Which is to say, really the format of your airship that's practical, does everything you need it to do. I've gone a bit overkill on this particular one, but there are some features that I'll try and talk about if I don't forget to do that. That's really about how the sprinklers have changed in this particular version, which is to say the 1.0 release version. They've really done some improvements there that make a lot of what I've done, which I kind of learned previous, it's kind of obsolete. So, which is really to say, it's totally overkill. You don't really need to do that anymore. But anyway, did it. Some of what you'll see, I'll warn you in advance, some of what you see down here on this lower deck is the resultant of the way it used to work, where you really needed a whole lot of water, a whole lot of ability to collect water, and then those sprinklers would constantly ran it out on your plants. All that stuff actually was in fact above here. It used to be between the two balloons. You've actually got a couple different options of balloons, but rather than go into that, we'll show you that once we step outside, which I'll do that here in just a minute. So anyway, the base here for the ship is 5 wide with catwalks on both sides, so really 7 wide total. And then down here is a 3-deck wide, also 14 blocks long, like the main deck here. So the reason for this double decker, this is actually the first time I've ever done a double deck. Technically double deck, which is really to say main deck with a whole lot of useful space. But I tried the Bloom cockpit. I liked it. I liked the shape. I like the fact that you basically end up with the cockpit itself kind of halfway between the two decks. I like that concept. The problem is it has a solid floor, so you cannot see through the floor. As far as I could tell, nothing you could do to that. I like having the glass because obviously, as you can see here, you can actually see the deck that you're landing on, so you have much more finite control as you're piloting, so you don't ram into things. Now they've improved some other stuff there. You can actually hit the deck pretty hard and not damage your ship. So if you've played through some of the pre-version 1 evolutions, you know that sometimes you could come in a little bit hard, and in fact you would damage your ship possibly severely. So you know it was in your best interest to pilot very well when you were coming in and landing on platforms. All right, so with all that babble said, on we go here. We'll start outside and then work our way inside. So we have these gangways. There's actually 4 of them. You can kind of see that one down here, down on the bottom. So there's actually 2 starboard and 2 port. So 1 on this upper deck here and 1 on the lower deck. So I did that for really flexibility. So you can really kind of work with whatever you've got going. All right, so the deck extractors, this happens to be a filtering version. There is the deck extractor, which you get fairly early on in the game as you're roaming around the world, and eventually you will come up to the automatic deck extractor, which will just aim and pick off everything that's in front of it, and then eventually you will be able to upgrade that a second time to the filtering deck cannon, where you can actually tell it what you want to filter. In this case, I take the 4 major things, which is the silicon here, synthetics, synthetics, the metal, silicon here, and then copper. In the case of copper, you're really only getting those from the windmills, like you see over here. These big wind farm generator things. That's the only place you can get copper, other than finding little bits of copper here and there throughout the game. So anyway, there are in fact 12 of these deck cannons. Oh, there's one. Put battery in there. The reason I ended up with this was partially symmetry and partially because I really hate those flying creatures. They just annoy the crap out of me. So ended up with enough of the deck extractors to really protect the ship from those flying creatures. So that was kind of the idea there. So 12 deck cannons, deck extractors. Too many years of military talking there, I guess. All right, get some, and I'll probably end up having to do some more of those. So as we go around, obviously the deck extractor here on the outer catwalk, we have the metal collectors here. There's actually 2 port and 2 starboard, and then also the insect catchers. These are the upgraded versions, which are the automatic insect catchers. So what they do, they use the same lures, so you can use the standard lure or the advanced lure, and they will capture all the same things as those 2 different types of lures will do. The only difference is when they catch, rather than just sit here and thump at you, they will actually raise the catcher back up to the top and then wait there for you. So that's the one advantage. So it's really one less button push for you to get that whatever that creature is back up onto the deck for you. So there again, 2 port, 2 starboard. So that kind of became my standard, because when you really, being the OCD thing, why I have 2 metal collectors, I set them both to go and then police them as I go. Because usually, obviously, if you've played the game a bit, you know that metal is a bit scarce. So it's one of those much rare resources that's floating around there in the sky. So having those metal extractors really becomes extremely important to you. So I ended up with 2 of them, and then I go port and starboard, which means if I'm standing over here, then I'm going to run the snot out of these 2, and then, you know, sometimes you can actually, especially with the metal extractors, the metal collectors here, you can set both sides to run, and then all you're really doing is just policing the bins. The nice thing is, as they've changed things into version 1.0 here, you actually have quite a bit more capacity. So what I have found is that you can actually fill the bin here like 3 1/4 times or so before your lure runs out, or your collector actually runs out. So It's pretty nice. You get quite a bit at a time, which is really neat. Okay, so the insect capture things there. Here, another deck extractor, another deck extractor, and another deck extractor here on the very end. If we look up the side, kind of hard to tell, but there's actually 8 turbines. These are the upgraded versions of the turbines. So you have your basic turbine and then your upgraded version. So there's actually 4 port and 4 starboard. So you get the maximum height, which is the 400 unit, whatever that unit equivalent actually is. I just saw that one go red. So we'll get that when we come back around here. For propulsion here, we actually have 6 engines. These engines are actually plumbed into, you can kind of see the fuel tanks, but we'll see those when we get inside. So a fuel tank can actually power 2 engines, and it's pretty nice. It gives you 4 slots that you can put fuel into. It makes it just a much more convenient methodology rather than having to fill each engine individually. It gives you that opportunity to fill 2 engines from one place. Now, you don't actually get any more capacity out of it. Each of these advanced engines here, which these are the upgraded engines, actually have 2 slots. So if you think this one through, then you have the ability to fuel 2 engines from 1 tank. Your tank has 4 slots, your engines have 2 slots each, so 2 times 2 is still 4. So you really don't gain anything other than having a central location where you can actually put those 4 stacks of fuel, whatever it happens to be. So in my case, I've got the 6 engines here. There's actually 3 on this deck, and hard to see, but there's 3 on the deck below. So that's my lower deck there. And so 6 engines and 3 fuel tanks, so basically 2 engines per fuel tank is what it will work. And those are all plumbed in with pipes, so you use the pipes, which if you've played a little bit with the game, know those can be a bit challenging to make them all work. Alright, off to the starboard side over here. So another deck extractor, all filtering. I've got all of them set the same. So the reason for that is again, you don't you end up collecting a whole lot of biomass. So let's see if there's any biomass flowing. Those big seed-looking things that are new for version 4.0. These energy things you don't actually collect with the deck cannons. I'm not seeing any of them at the moment. There we go. So these show up as organic, but when you capture them, they're actually biomass, so they translate into biomass. And of course your synthetics here, but biomass, you end up collecting really quite a bit of biomass to the point where probably in 20-30 minutes you're going to end up with 2,000 or 3,000 biomass. Well, if you have 12 deck extractors going anyway. So I ended up originally I upgraded to all the automatic deck cannons. It was taking in an awful lot of stuff, mostly biomass, and you just end up to the point where you don't have any more need for biomass. So obviously biomass is a source of fuel. It's an intermediate fuel. Works out pretty well with the water because you basically get dirty water and biomass, and you can turn it into biofuel. Biofuel is an intermediate fuel, so you get a little bit more efficiency out of your engines with it. But in the end, how much do you really need? So that was what I was running into. So eventually upgraded my deck extractors once again to the filtering version, which is the most advanced version, and then set them up for my synthetics, metals, silicon, and then copper, because you do ultimately use a bit of copper. Copper, of course, you can only get from kind of hard to see it there, but right there in the center of the screen is these wind turbines. So ultimately that's where you find the majority of your copper. There is some copper laying around in the world and in the damaged boxes that you find over the course of time, but ultimately that's where your main source of copper is. Alright, so down we go here, more deck extractor there. As we're moving forward. So center line on the ship. Once again, the insect capture devices here. These are the automatic versions. Again, they just basically raise it up for you once it catches an insect. More deck cannon there. The two other metal, these of course are the starboard side collectors for metal. And then let me just get batteries into these guys again. Quickly jump across because I saw this one go red. This is still one of the complaints I have for the game is you've got certain devices that are powered, certain devices that are not. The majority of devices have to be powered by a battery. I would really like to see something like a generator. You do in fact see generators like in the Underdust suburbs, for example. You go to any of the research sites, there is actually a generator sitting on the ground. It's a little box, but you know, if you know anything about covered generators, you say, oh, that's a generator. You know, clearly there's at least in concept generators in the game, so I think that would be kind of an intelligent thing to add into the game, because just having everything that's battery powered really kind of silly. And especially that all of your turbines are self-powered, so why? Doesn't make any sense. This is obviously a turbine is going to be a high energy demand device. Probably the deck extractors are high energy reasonably. So kind of weird. And your engines of course require fuel but don't require power of any kind, so that's kind of weird too. So anyway, my complaints there. All right, we'll go inside because obviously you need a Christmas tree in every ship. So that's the Christmas tree. So the helm here, we have the moth vivarium, we have the dolphin crystal ball, I think they call that the dolphin crystal ball. This is the advanced flora or something on that, yeah, something of that nature, the advanced flora something or other. Hologram. So in version 1.0 you now get to keep that. You don't dismantle it. It is, well, without going into spoilers or anything, you don't have to dismantle it anymore. You get to keep it. So the moth vivarium here, if you have not played with them, it's something that is discoverable in the world. You find that in the little cities, so you kind of have to roam around and find it, but eventually in the little cities you'll find that. So the nice thing about this is you can store all the different variants of the moth. In fact, it will hold, well, 3 times 12, so 36. 36 moths in total. So there is actually achievement to put all 3 types of moths into it simultaneously. So in this case, there's the regular dust moth, which is the red ones. The green one is kind of the medium variety of dust moth, which is called a fat dust moth. And then you have the blue ones there, which are the glowing dust moth. As you know from playing the game yourself probably, these moths are in fact a source of food. So they go up kind of in food content from the regular dust moth to the fat dust moth to the glowing dust moth. So they are actually progressive, so eventually you'll find the fat dust moth and the glowing dust moth, of course, are that advanced insect lure. So those are some of the things that you get with those guys. Alright, so this guy you rescue pretty early on in the game. I don't want to say early game because it is a little ways in there, but eventually in, you know, just before what I would say mid-game, you'll find this guy and get to rescue him. He's got some gear on here, but this is gear that you can discover as you go. You find the little data pads, and eventually you'll be able to make some different equipment for this guy. This guy can follow you. It is kind of a pet. So he's got the little backpack here, so you can actually put stuff in the backpack, which is kind of nice. So, all right. We have all of our water purification things. Each one of these does 5, which really matches that original water condenser that you get. You get that on your original ship. You also get one of these water purifiers on that original ship. So in this case, I've just expanded to the point where I can do. I think I've got about 15 of these in total, between 5, maybe 6 on. Looks like 5 on the one side, and then I think I've got 10 on this side. So ultimately, that's doing quite a few waters at a time, depending on how many bottles you have. Each one of these again does 5, so 5 bottles at a time. Which is nice because that, as I was saying, the original water condenser also does 5 at a time. So you literally take your 5 bottles of water from the water condenser, dump it into a single water purifier, and then you get your 5 bottles back in fresh water. So and 5 actually will last you quite a bit of gameplay time. So all the water extractors that you see definitely got, or water purifiers, excuse me, got a bunch of those. So this here is, of course, the medical bed, which can come in pretty handy. If you have a disease that you can't otherwise solve yet, then you'll be able to cure those ailments within this. That's actually achievement. So to cure yourself. These are the large freezers. The large freezers do take a bit of time to find. Obviously, like a lot of devices, you have to find those wrecked devices out there in the world. You do eventually find the wrecked large freezer, which is an upgrade from the small freezer, which you also have to find. So I think it was my second playthrough of the game where I was really focused on finding all the different devices. I actually found the large freezer before I found the small freezer. But the interesting aspect is you have to have a small freezer and upgrade to the large freezer, which meant just having the blueprint and the research completed for the large freezer did not mean I could use it. I had to find that small freezer first. So in my case, my convention is if I actually have a purpose, I will try and name these sticky notes. So I have sticky notes on everything, but I have left it with the default note if I truly don't have anything in it. So this is here just to take up the space because I had a convenient space here, so I put 2 of these guys right together. So just have my foodstuffs, and then this freezer happens to be empty. I do have the advanced chargers everywhere. I have one by every door. And then I think I also have a couple downstairs, but I may not have done both sides. I don't remember. I moved stuff around. So again, I did not originally do a double deck. I used to have a 2 balloon format to make it this 5 wide, which is exactly why it became 5 wide. I tend to be a little more OCD on my symmetries. So 4, which of course is even numbers, does not have the ideal symmetry. You don't have a center. So in this case, we have a center line here that we can actually utilize, and then you have 2 equidistant sides, whereas a 4 makes it a little bit awkward. So you can't do things like this in the back, which is actually more storage tanks, more water tanks, and then a couple more freezers, which we'll get there in just a few minutes. Alright, so Christmas tree, of course. This side turned out to be blank just because I was moving stuff around. I used to have storage up here, but I moved that towards the center because I had this hole in the center. So again, this iteration of 5 wide, 14 long is kind of been, how do I make the most efficient airship I can, where I can get to everything, and this kind of is what I came up with, so I've stuck with it. It seems to work really well, so why not? If it works, stick with it. So on this side, so over the starboard side just a bit here, we have the 2 distillers. I do 2 because when you're really working at things like the fertilizers and all that sort of thing, when you're kind of mid-ish game, these take a little while, usually about a minute to do what they do. So it really does take some time. So having 2 of them to be able to accomplish basically twice the amount in the same amount of time is really very convenient. Now this becomes a factor of weight for your airship. So obviously your airship can run out of weight, which is to say weight capacity, very quickly. So you want to be, at least early game and even mid game, you want to be careful about how much you're putting down. But ultimately the size of your airship becomes a function of how much stuff you have. Obviously storage space becomes very, very critical because all the inventories are limited. Now there are mods out there that let you have more capacity. I in fact use a bunch of those mods, but some people look at mods as being a bit cheaty. I don't really perceive it that way because this is, after all, a single player game. How do you cheat at solitaire? So, all right. So here's the two distillers. We have
hydration level is decreasing.
Yes. My AI warning me about things. We have our two device fabricators here. There's actually 6 on board the vessel here. We have 2 port, 2 starboard. So these obviously are the starboard side ones. And then we have, oh, I guess I'm wrong. There's actually 4 on this lower deck. 2 port and 2 starboard down there too. So actually 8 of those in total. So the list, if you look at the description of this video, you will actually find a list of everything that's on board, as silly as it is, the list of all the devices. So eight of these device fabricators. So here's the 2 distillers, which you really do find pretty much the first time you end up on a greenhouse, you're going to find these. So that's pretty early game stuff. They are useful. Definitely no doubt about that. Device fabricators, again, a couple more water purifiers up here. This device here, the only one that is hanging from the ceiling, is the recycler. I don't want to say that's a mid-game device because you can kind of find it anywhere. It's really where and when you find it. The nice thing about this thing is you can put really any device into this. I haven't found any exceptions to that yet. You put the device, whatever it is, into this, it will break it down to those component parts, and then you can take those component parts back. This, of course, is your research station, which you get on your initial airship. So this is same iteration. You could potentially make another one of these if you wanted to. You can. I think you make that one in here. Yes, research station. So you can in fact make another research station in your device fabricator if you want to. So for whatever reason. Recycler, of course, once you research it, also made a lot of stuff is made in this device fabricator. All right, going back over to port side here. These are the upgrade fabricators. So the upgrade fabricators don't make anything on their own. They always take something that you have found the upgrade wrecked device for, and then they will upgrade it with the use usually of a lot of advanced components, especially upgrade components. So those boxes that you see damaged around the world, make sure you take the time to open those because that's where you find a lot of upgrade devices. Second, that is when you see the pods come into the world and crash into the buildings, definitely stop over there. There's actually 2 boxes there that you can repair, and then you get a lot of upgrade devices, you get a lot of motherboards and that sort of thing. So definitely you want to grab those. Come in pretty handy. So in my case, I have 2 upgrade fabricators, 2 more device fabricators on this side, but this is kind of my standard format to have these upgrade fabricators. They come in pretty handy, so sometimes you get lost. They can take sometimes 2 minutes to do something, so having them both working together can be rather nice. Again, more of the water purifiers here. This is your virus sample analyzer. So you eventually get one of these. You'll find that in the lab, which you'll eventually get to. That's kind of semi-early game. And you build that on your ship. This here is the Furniture Fabricator. So that's a little later on in the game, also kind of mid-ish game. So you have one of those. You kind of have to choose whether you want just one of these. I have one sitting out here on the deck. but I do actually have one more of these that when I'm really doing stuff, because there are certain things that you can only make in the Furniture Fabricator. It's kind of like the Device Fabricator. There's a bunch of stuff that you look at as decoration, but it's like these shelving units, for example, are only made in the furniture manufacturer. So if you're doing your storage system, getting your storage methodology all set up, that's the only place you can make these. The only place you can make the sticky notes is in that. So sometimes it behooves you just build a second one, and then I actually store those into my spare equipment box. So I have some extra distillers that also live in there. Something you may consider for yourselves. Moving on to the next subject here, which is food again. I have 6 cookers here. There's 3 back to back, and the reason I did this is a lot of things in your gardening are 3 whatevers per plant. So it's kind of nice. You end up 2 plants, you end up with 6. The other reason you end up with 6 here is the timing of these guys, which is pretty consistent across all the different fruits, veggies, whatever. I don't know if it's 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever, but what I have found is that as you are feeding each one of these things, so you basically throw something in, start it, throw something in, start it, you go right around the loop here. So you basically curve right around, finish these 3, and by the time you get back to this first one again, it is just about done. If you hesitate, get delayed in something, then this one actually will be done. So it's this 6 methodology that seems to work pretty well. So basically by the time you feed the 6th one, the first one is ready for you to actually take the stuff out of it. So it works out pretty well. Each one of these, as you might already know, can handle 20 units of water, whatever those, so basically you take 20 bottles of water and fill this up, so you can do actually quite a bit of cooking in each one of these. And then you multiply that by 60, or 6 rather, then that's 20 times 6, which is in fact 120 different items that you can boil before you run out of water. So part of my OCD is that I do however much boiling I need to do, and then fill them all. Excuse me. Fill them all back up, so I always have 20 units of water in each one of these. So that's kind of my my kitchen right here. In the center line here, so one of the things that I mentioned previously is that if it just says note, there's nothing in there. So this is just storage because I have the space. I try to fill all the empty spaces with something. In the case of these 2, it says seeds 1 and seeds 2. There's actually nothing in the seeds 2, so even though I've got that one marked, there's nothing actually in that. So all my seeds are in here. Open, you can see all the different types. So I think I found everything in the game there. Obviously I'm late game, so I've done a lot of collecting over the course. So the 2 freezers here face to face, this is kind of my plants. As you know, things spoil over time. So the more stuff you can store in a freezer, the better. The freezer basically freezes it, it stops that process. There is, again, if you like mods, there's a mod out there that basically prevents spoiling. So it stops spoilage, which is really to say it sets the timer for spoilage out there to like 1,000,000 minutes or 1,000,000 hours. Or I think it's 1,000,000 minutes, which is quite a bit, to put it mildly. This one I call medical supplies, but I put things like the diver pearls, the breath nuts, all that sort of thing end up in here. Also all the creatures that I've killed end up in here because they can ultimately be a food source. Everything pretty much in the game, if you cook it down, can become a food source. So all that stuff ends up in here. All right, I'm going to go to the back first because we were talking about the fuel tanks earlier, and then we'll go downstairs and talk about the piping and everything that's down here. So we'll get to the whole garden mechanism as we go here. So fuel tanks, this is a fuel tank. There's actually 3 of them. Again, because there's 6 engines out there, each engine can be powered off a fuel tank. One fuel tank can handle 2 engines, so basically 2 engines per fuel tank. So 3 of them there. 3 tanks for 6 engines. All right, I'm gonna go in here and feed myself before I start dying. This is all right. Got that taken care of. All right. So a bit more storage in the back. I really just kind of every space I had that I could put something into, I went ahead and did storage. Now, one of the things you notice here, I'll go ahead and show you some of this. Obviously, these are a lot bigger than vanilla game. So I run 4 mods. The non-spoil mods, there's a storage mod that basically doubles the size of a storage box in both axes. So basically doubles the width and doubles the length. There is a personal storage mod that basically takes your personal inventory, your character inventory, and then does either 8 or 10 rows of 10. In my case, I'm using the 8 because the 2 bottom rows actually go in behind these, which make them very awkward to use. There's a couple different versions of this particular one. They will either let you use the backpack, which is with the backpack, you get basically for the small backpack you get 2 more rows. For the medium backpack you get 2 more rows. So basically the medium backpack gives you 4 rows because you actually lose your small backpack. In the process of that, you use your small backpack to upgrade to the medium backpack. So basically you lose 2 rows but gain 4. So for what that's worth, you can get a maximum of 6 rows just by virtue of upgrading your character over time. So anyway, those are some things. So storage box is one. The other one is your personal inventory. The other mod that I use is actually setting a lot of things to this 9999, which gives you a really good stack. For those of you who really enjoy grinding, then of course avoid all these. But for me, I really don't enjoy grinding. It's nice to pick stuff up. I'm a bit OCD, which means I do pick up everything, as you can see here. So I really like picking everything up. I do not like the fact that the storage, your inventory, is so incredibly small that in really any given place, given the very, very small stack sizes, you basically, for every single place you stop, you're going to be traveling back and forth to your vessel multiple times. And then because the storage is limited on your vessel, even if you have a bunch of boxes, then you end up with just a whole boatload of boxes, which is, to me, is ridiculous. So why spend the entire weight of my airship on storage boxes when I can use a mod that just makes it a little bit, well, a bunch more practical. Ridiculous, arguably, but still. All right, so storage boxes back here. There are, in fact, 30 storage boxes total on the vessel. So there's 6 back here. There are, I think, 12 in the center here. Yep. There are 4 more in the center here, and then there are a bunch more. I think 8 more downstairs. It might be 4 more downstairs. Yeah, right here. So, anyway, storage. Can't have too much storage. All right, there are, in fact, stairs going downstairs, both forward and aft. So the forward one is literally right next to the tree, and then the aft one is back here. So we'll start out forward and work our way aft. I think I've showed you everything up here. We'll come back and talk more about the garden because we'll talk about the sprinklers and all that sort of stuff. All right, I'm going here backwards. All right, so the bottom deck here. So this is the first time I've done a double deck vessel. technically. What I've done in the past is I would have two balloons. I suppose I should go out here so you can actually see what the vessel looks like here. So I've done the two balloons, and I've left one space in between, and then I put, which we haven't seen it, but all the tanks here for the water collection system I have put up on top. And originally that worked out to be a very efficient method of not wasting space, because I've really found that this is kind of wasted space. As you can see, there's not a whole lot going on here. This is reasonably empty, at least up until these doors here where all the tanks are in the back. So I used to have two decks of tanks, this single row going down the middle between the balloons. So it was long. It was the length of the ship, so that's technically 14 rooms, depending on whether I cut one off on each end or not. But basically, tanks are running down the entire length. So you end up with 30-ish tanks up there. So anyway, let me roam forward here. I'm going to step up onto this thing so I'm just a little higher, and then turn around so you can see the ship. And that's no help at all. Nope, no better, but kind of a little up view. So what I ended up is 3 balloons. So I added one more room out here. You can see kind of in the center of the screen where the target dot reticle is. So one more out here, that basically a room out to the 7 wide, and I moved the balloon base from this 5th row. So the very starboard most, or port side in this case, and the starboard side where the balloon mounts were, and out one more. So by having them 5 wide at the base, each one of the balloons is 3 wide, which means you end up with this one corridor down the middle, which is where I used to run my tanks. So in this case, I was trying to experiment with the bloom cockpit. I like the bloom cockpit. I don't like the fact that the floor is solid. You cannot see through it. So when you're landing on platforms, which of course is what you do, then it makes it very awkward in seeing exactly where that deck is versus the bottom of the ship. Sometimes you can come in pretty hard. The good news in version 1.0 is you have a much lower probability of damaging your ship. You can come in pretty hard and not have any damage to your ship, which is really kind of good. Is it realistic? Arguably no, but at least you don't damage your ship every time you come in on a bit of a harder landing than you intended. With that floor not being see-through, not being able to put glass on that floor, it made it awkward. You could not see through the floor. You really had to rely on peripheral view, if you will, to the point where it was pretty awkward to see exactly where that platform was versus the bottom of your ship. So it was a little hard. The other thing about that bloom cockpit was it was 2 levels, and I liked the fact it was a split level, so the place where your helm was in fact right between the decks, which was actually kind of neat. So you had a stair coming up from the bottom, a stair coming down from above, so it was indeed a 2-deck high cockpit, which was kind of neat. In my case, because I could not see through the floor, I really did not like that. I liked the shape. I thought it was really neat how they laid it out, but not having glass under my feet where I could not see easily, I really didn't like that. So what I ended up doing is going with a large cockpit, and the large cockpit inverted, and then I moved the actual cockpit back up to the upper level. So now you can see through because of the glass and see where all this is. So you can see these gangways here. You can see the 2 port and 2 starboard, 2 on the upper deck and 2 on the lower deck. So In the end, I pulled the center line stuff out. I moved that all downstairs because there really wasn't any other use for that downstairs portion. So this gave somewhat of an existence reason for that lower deck. So at the same time, I moved the balloon components out. These happen to be the bulky balloons, which are in fact the most lift of all of the balloon types. You got 3 more balloon types. Let me go ahead and see if I can show you those. You got 3 different balloon types, which you gained in the version 1.0. So this was your original balloon core, which had 500 lift natively. You could expand the balloons 4 times. So with that expansion, you get 400 kilograms each. So basically 5 plus 400 times 4 is 1600. So 2100 per balloon by the time you completely expand it. So the bulky balloon here is 800 is your native. You have the flat balloon. I have not played with this one yet, but that's 700 native lift. And then your tech balloon core, which I did have before the bulky ones here. I actually took the tech balloon cores off and added the bulky because I wanted that extra 50 kilograms per machine.
A storm is
So those are the 3 that you get. That was a storm warning there, so I think I'm going to get off of this platform because why be a lightning rod? Get into a ship that doesn't guarantee me, any safety risk. Go there. Doesn't mean the ship won't get damaged in all this, but at least I'm inside the ship. One of the things I just wanted to quickly bulky on the original balloon was fine. What I discovered is with that center run down the middle and my balloon cores out, one from those, which is to say, the 5 wide, you could actually get outside and crouch down and then fully service your piped water generators. When I put the bulky balloons out there, discovered you could no longer do that. You can no longer travel down the side of those in the crouched position. You will basically get trapped next to the balloon. So that required me to move those out 1 more, which now you have 3 spaces in between, the original one in the middle, and then 1 on each side. So I could then service the high water generators again, but that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And at that point, it's 3 wide, I might as well put a balloon in the center, which is what I did. So with the advent of the balloon cockpit, that would be a good reason to actually just add on this lower deck. All right, forgive me for just a minute. I've got to take care of something in the house, so forgive me for pausing just a moment. All right, just the instant there. Sorry about that. I think I got that all edited out, figured out how to push the pause button. So we got a couple, this is still the bottom deck here. Got a couple more storage boxes here. We had a couple storage boxes here because why not? The bed up here, this is the bed that eventually we'll be able to find. So nice addition there. What you can't see here is a bunch of tanks. And tanks. There's a bunch in there. Again, there's 40 tanks in total on the ship here. There's 6 on the port side here. all interconnected. These are just basically daisy chained together. So the heart of your sprinkler system, sprinklers. You need water for your sprinklers. So in the previous iterations, the problem was you would turn the sprinklers on and they would just run. So my thought process was I want enough water collection capability that I should be able to just let these guys flow. So what did I do? I came up with an idea that 8 pipe water generators, which you eventually, again, this is something that you can find and then eventually utilize. The nice thing about these is these guys are all interconnected with pipes versus that original water condenser which you had to work manually. So effectively these guys fill up and they will pump water into tanks for you. The membranes actually last a long time. They are a bit more expensive, but they do take synthetics. Oh, these are actually, yeah, I need to change these out. But we'll do that after off screen there. So 8 water generators, pipe water generators. So there are 4 on this side and of course 4 on this side. Now the heart of your sprinklers is of course water. So the idea is to collect enough water to make those sprinklers run. Upstairs I have 16 different sprinklers. There's 8 on each side, kind of distributed out. There's 6 for big plots and then 2 for small plots. So that really works out to 36 big plots and 12 small plots. So the idea there is to have enough water to supply those guys all the time. Now the good thing about version 1 is they've taken the, if you played the game, you remember that it was kind of, go up here and kind of illustrate these guys. Now this is a bug, I think, because these guys show as 74% and they stay there forever. But here's the good news, is the sprinklers now sense what the garden plots are doing and they will only be on when the plot needs more water. So the idea is they go to 100% moisture, the sprinklers will automatically turn off, which is really cool. You probably remember previously these guys would just run forever. They would eventually run your water system no matter how large it was out, which is in fact why I came up with this, bazillion tanks, bunches of water generators, and eventually, I would fill everything up and then turn the sprinklers on, eventually run everything out, and then turn the sprinklers off and regenerate everything over and over and over. So my methodology then became a function of this problem of the sprinklers just running. Now, the reason I call this as a bug is because maybe it's because of how close they are, the small garden plots don't know what's causing this, but these guys never go to 100%, no matter how I put them. Experiment a little bit, but however I put them, it is apparently not sensing, and these show as running all the time. However, they're not using water, so my tanks are all full, so I think it's a bug, but we'll see how that goes, as they do hot fixes and that sort of thing. So 6 garden plots. So anyway, this is really the end game of your water supply, is you are trying to supply water, obviously, to your sprinklers, so you can water your garden plots. So in this case, because of this update where the sprinklers now actually work automatically, you no longer, there's still the switch, the on-off switch here, but you don't actually have to use it. So conveniently, you save an incredible amount of water. So again, what I have downstairs here is totally overkill. You would never need this many tanks. Again, 40 tanks in total, 40 large tanks. You would never need that. So this is nothing but tanks, kind of hard to see, but nothing but tanks from here to that forward port. Forward section there where the storage boxes are. So basically I go up this side and come down the other side. Now there's a little more complicated than that because I had this originally and then it was all like, okay, do I really want, I've got 26 tanks. Don't I want an even number of like 30 tanks? And then it was like, okay, do I want really just 2 on each side? Well, why don't we go, you know, just... So anyway, it was OCD kicked in and I ended up with an even 40 tanks. So let's talk about these. We have water generators out here, pipe water generators. There are 8 of them. There's 4 starboard, 4 port. So basically they have to sit outside on the deck. They come through the bulkhead, and so it's 2 pipe water generators per tank. So large tank can have 2 inputs, 2 outputs. A small tank can have 2 inputs, 1 output. So in this case, I am doing 2 inputs, 1 pipe water generator into each tank. So this is 1 tank that's basically a collection tank for those 2, and 1 tank that's a collection for those 2. That's mirrored on this side, so basically those 4 pipe water generators go into 2 tanks. These 2 tanks are once again collected, so they go out independently and then go into this single tank. So this is basically a catch tank for those 2. This becomes a catch tank for, in fact, 2 tanks. So literally we are summing all 4 of those guys into 3 tanks. So ultimately we can fill 3 tanks with those 4 water generators. This just daisy chains into this guy. So basically we have the same thing on this side. So these 2 tanks sum into this tank. This tank does the single daisy chain into this tank. These 2 then sum and go into this tank. So this is now summing the port and starboard side, and then daisy chain into this tank here. So this is very elaborate, totally overkill, but hey, you know, what are you going to do with your parts and pieces? All right, this one, strangely enough, comes down the port side, daisy chains through all of these. I'm wrong, sorry, excuse me. Okay, sorry. That goes down to this row here in the center. Definitely the port side, but still center line. It comes out. I'll show you where this comes out. Right here. Comes through the bulkhead. Goes to these, which are all daisy chains. So this is literally daisy chain, tank to tank to tank to tank. Then this guy comes over, down and around, because I had pipes up here, so going through pipes without one of those little crossover guys. I didn't make any crossover guys, so came down to the floor, hit this row on the starboard side. Again, daisy chain tanks all the way to the end, through the bulkhead into this reverse facing one, and then again tank to tank to tank, daisy chained, until we come down to here. And then these guys actually come out of this tank. You see this is coming out in dual, and then they go up to the next level. So we'll go upstairs. So these are all the tanks down here. There are actually 8 more tanks upstairs. So this is 32 tanks in total down here, large tanks. As you can see, they're all full. So none of the pipe water generators are running, but all the tanks are full. So you know we're not using water in these small, or the sprinklers that are servicing these small garden plots. So I think that's fun. All right, upstairs we go. Now this comes through the deck right here. Even though this pipe is upside down, it's hard to see, but it is this color on the bottom. So what we did was separate back out into port and starboard, and then these tanks in here, there's actually 4 in a row, port and starboard, daisy chain. So literally we split off of this tank, come up to port and starboard side, daisy chain port and starboard, and then they come out on the forward side that actually do the supply to the sprinklers. So that's what these guys are. So obviously this comes out the starboard side, because of all of the sprinklers are actually with the plumbing against the bulkhead, then they kind of go the long way around. So this one comes all the way over here, goes through these, there's 3 in a row here, then go into these next 2, crossover, come around, and then hit these last 3 on this side. So total of 8 per side. This, of course, is the starboard side, and then ends right here without going anywhere. So effectively the same exact thing on the other side, short of how it goes through. These are not exactly mirrored. They're in fact inverted mirrors. So because of where this is the input on the port side versus the input on the starboard side. So this is basically just loops around, goes through, but then everything else is pretty much the same. Goes through these 3, goes all the way back, hits these 2, then comes forward and hits these 3 as the outside, and then ends here. So we have, as I mentioned, 36 large garden plots. So that is 18 per side, so 3, 3, and 3, and 3, 3, 3. So you can basically have 3 big garden plots under a large sprinkler. And as you can see, these guys are not sprinkling anything. So they have automatically turned off because you can see your soil moisture 100%. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that if I collect these are, of course, coffee beans. Nice to have your coffee, right? But you can see these guys automatically start again, and then when these guys start to grow, it will shut off again. So this automatic sprinkler function actually is really, really neat. So it will save you a boatload of water. So again, my 40 tank system here is way overkill given what it is now. But with this automatic function, I've never seen my tanks go down. So even with all of these different plants. Now, just for sake of mentioning, the plants and how you do your plants obviously is a very individualized thing. In my case, the coffee beans here, you end up with 3 per plant, so I have 9, which then defies my theory of 6 before, but the reason was I had an extra plot. So I wanted to do something with that, and practical said, well, what do I use a lot of? And that would be coffee beans. So, green colander. Green colander was a bit hard to get going, finding where they are. Of course, all the greenhouses have them. I don't know if it is just the way the randomization is a bit borked or what it is, but I found that seeds for some of these higher consumable things were really hard to come by. So green colander, in my case, I had visited, I believe it was 2 different greenhouses before I got my first seed. Now, once you're planting a seed, of course, you have a little bit higher probability of getting a seed with every harvest. So eventually I was able to get another seed. I had just planted it instantly, and then now I had 2 plots going, and then harvest, and then eventually get another seed. So eventually I ended up with 4 of these guys. So 4 times 3 each, of course, is 12. So that actually gives you a very consistent source of fruit type food. You still have to boil them, but at least you have those there. The sunmelon, they have changed quite a bit. You find sunmelon in much less places now, and I probably found 50 plants. Half of those did not have sunmelons on them at all, and it took me that long to get a single seed. It took me a long time, which is why I think that whole process of random seed might be borked. So I wouldn't think that you would get to, I literally was late game without ever getting a sunmelon seed. Finally got a sunmelon seed, and then the only way I got the second sunmelon seed, I had harvested here about 6 times before I got my first sunmelon seed as part of harvest and then planted. Of course, 3 sunmelons per plant here per harvest, which this is my 6th. So 6 plus 4 plus originally 2, which gave me 6, 12, and 6. And then I had 1 plot left, so it was like, huh, what am I going to do with that? Okay, I'll just plant more coffee, because I like coffee. On this side we have our lobster pepper, which is actually very useful. If you cook it, you get water and energy, so it basically can take the role of coffee as well as food. So kind of neat. The downside is you only get 2 lobster peppers per plant, which means to do your 6, you actually have 3 plants here. Semi-early game, you'll eventually get to the diver pearls, but semi-early game, you end up with the breath nuts. When you plant a breath nut seed, you're going to get 5 breath nuts per plant, which is actually really cool. Now the downside is you're only getting 50 units of oxygen, whatever the units actually translate into, I don't know, but so it's kind of nice. You get a bunch of them, so I planted 4. This is again just kind of past experience and iterations. Having 4 means for every harvest you have 20 breath nuts. Reasonably, you could actually go through 20 breath nuts in any adventure where you need oxygen. So it's actually pretty convenient, which is why I came up with the 4 concept. Again, I said this was my 4th playthrough. This will be my first playthrough where I've actually ended up with a diver pearl seed. So I instantly planted that. It never even went into the seed box, went right into a garden plot. And eventually, I think it was the 3rd harvest where I got another seed, which I planted another one. Now the weird thing here is you get 8 diver pearls per harvest, 4 diver pearls per harvest. So these 2 plants here give you 8. The interesting translation is you'll actually use your distiller. You take 3 diver pearls, put it through the distiller, you will get 5 liquid oxygen. So you can run the numbers there and figure out what's the most efficient, how many plants do you need for diver pearls. But in the end, the nice thing about liquid oxygen, so diver pearl becomes liquid oxygen. The advantage of liquid oxygen is it's 100 points. So the 50 points of your breath nut versus your 100 points of liquid oxygen, which ultimately only come from diver pearls. So nice advantage. You go through far less liquid oxygen, of course. The downside to the liquid oxygen is it's 100 points per bottle of liquid oxygen. So sometimes you're hauling a lot of bottles, unless you're using that 9999 stack count thing, and then you'll have 10,000 bottles in one. So okay, so that is the gardening system, which pretty much rounds us out. So this is my plants, what I have determined to be very convenient. So let's go to the starboard side here and see what we have over here. So dust daisies here, you translate dust daisies into plant something. Plant oil maybe? No, that's okay. Distiller, plant resin. Sorry. Dust daisies translate into plant resin. Plant resin turns into epoxy. So basically, how do you get to epoxy? Because there's only so much epoxy in the world. Plant resin, which is to say dust daisies, will give you the ability to make plant resin. You take plant resin and use that for creating epoxy. Therefore, you have a sustainable source, ultimately, of epoxy. Plant oil comes from the canola. So you basically take plant oil and then you use plant oil to create polymer, which is another thing that you actually need. So now you have a sustainable source of polymer. So here's this liquid oxygen up here. Liquid neon, of course, comes from your glowweed, which is a later thing. You actually need your glowweed for that immunity booster as well. Organic fertilizer is something you find, so rotten food and biomass. Organic fertilizer, so you basically have dust fertilizer and organic fertilizer. One of the things I found in version 1.0 is there are certain things that you have to use organic fertilizer for. So even though organic fertilizer natively, as it says here, accelerates plant growth by 2, you would think that dust fertilizer, which accelerates plant growth by 3, you should be able to use that fertilizer for anything. Not the case, I found out, which I'm a little disappointed at. Fertilizer is fertilizer. Why would the plant actually care? So I thought it was kind of self-defeating to say, well, dust fertilizer is better, because you can't actually use dust fertilizer for everything. There's also some things which require dust fertilizer, which means you can't grow it without having dust fertilizer, which I think is kind of an awkward limitation. You should be able to grow everything with or without fertilizer, because that's just reality. Will it grow better with fertilizer? Certainly, but to require you to have fertilizer, especially when dust fertilizer is a later game thing. So for what that's worth. So anyway, being able to grow certain things that will allow you to get components that you otherwise need is always a good thing. So that's kind of what your garden is all about, getting you all the things that you need, possibly for processing into other things, but still a sustainable, renewable source. All right, back to we go. So dust daisies over here. This is Meteor Bean. And Meteor Bean you find in the first lift section, which is to say the underdust. They're a little bit hard to find. They're also a little bit, I've always had trouble finding that first Meteor Bean seed. Once you do, you plant it and then harvest, and eventually you'll get your other one, and then, same thing here. This is kind of one of these interesting things. I think you get 4 Meteor Beans per plant. So kind of interesting there. So here is the summer balm fruit. Summer balm fruit is one of the, I'm trying to remember what, let me go into the soup printer here. I think that tells me where that is. Brain cleanser. So green colander also for brain cleanser, which is your cure for meningitis. Lobster pepper, which is your cure for pyrexia. Patat is gastroenteritis. So we've got, here we go, hemoglobin. Yep, here we go, hemorrhagic fever. I don't know why they call it hemorrhage fever, but it's actually hemorrhagic fever. So this is the cure, which you make this hemoglobin purifier with the summer balm fruit. So again, you can eat it, you can boil it and eat it. It is a pretty decent food source, but this is your main purpose for this summer balm fruit. So I go ahead and grow that when I can. The next one over here, this is your North Star seed. This is another food source, not necessarily an incredible one, but it does, I think this boils down into water and food. So some of these, the reason I grow this one is because it is a multi-thing. So I can, eat one of these and actually get food and water, which is kind of nice. So North Star, you find that along with Pig Smiles.
Risk of dehydration.
Pig Smile is just another thing you can grow. I found North Star fruit to be a bit more practical because of that food and water thing. All right, let me fix this here. This is exactly why I like my coffee beans. Don't have to sleep anymore. So Siren Crown here, you find this kind of late mid-game, and then it is part of the immunity booster as well. So you definitely need this. You can boil this and eat it. Of course, end game is you find the sleeping lily fruit, which actually you find the seeds, you plant it, you grow the fruit, and then this becomes ultimately the cure for the virus that you're fighting all along. As you can see here, the shape of this plant is really what this representation of the advanced flora hologram up here. You can see. So that's really what you're looking for in game. So this tells you what, hey, this is what we're looking for. We know it exists, we're just not sure where. And eventually you figure out where. So that's why I've chosen all the different plants that I have. One of the things you see is there's a whole bunch of empty ones over here, so I basically built all of them. They are all ready to go. I just don't have any more need for plants. I pretty much am growing everything I need to be growing already. So those are just empty until I need something more. So we talked earlier, this is the canola. This is the bruise flour. You take the bruise flour and you can make the basic first aid kits out of the bruise flour, so that's why I have these here. Now the downside to these small garden plots is you take a seed, you plant them, you end up with 3, and then when you harvest, that's it. What you get is what you get. You might get, you'll definitely get, in this case, 3 bruise flour. You might actually get a bruise flour seed. That's not guaranteed because it is random. So in this process here, I will get maybe 1 to 3 seeds. So the good news is I can replant, but in the end you want to do enough harvesting and finding the bruised flour in the world that you have plenty of seeds. So the idea is collect all those seeds. If you don't need them, don't use them. But in the end, these small garden plots, every time you do a harvest, you have to replant from a seed, which makes it kind of inconvenient. So the more seeds you have, the better, but eventually you could potentially run out of seeds, maybe. So the big garden plots, however, that is not the case. These plant once and then regrow and regrow and regrow. I don't know if that's infinite or not. I have no idea. I have never run out in any of the games I've played. Every time I redo, then it goes. The only exception to that is the Eclane seed. I'm not even sure how that's pronounced, but you find that in the wild, the new territory area. And once you pick them, it's done. So that's the only one I know of that requires a large garden plot. It will grow for you, but the probability of getting a seed seems to be much lower. So that one actually took me. I had to visit the new territory areas 5 or 6 times. And that's, of course, you can't just go right back to it. One of the things I did find in version 1.0, there's actually 2 of those. So you basically go to one. If that has respawned everything, which eventually everything will respawn, which is kind of nice, then you go through that one. If you don't get your seed there, you go to the other one. If you don't get your seed there, then you roam around a bit more. Eventually everything will respawn. I don't know what the timer is there, a day, whatever it is. I don't actually know what the timer is, but eventually everything will respawn. You can go back to either or both, and eventually you will be able to get your seed for that. So for what that's worth. I didn't find yet any use in the game for those. They are explosive fruit, so you kind of have to be a little careful with those. Alright, so that's my canola and my bruised flour. On this side, this is this dust firecracker, which you actually need for quite a few things. The most important of which is your electric bolts, so your exploding bolts for your crossbow. So definitely you want to have some dust firecracker fruit for the development of those. This is the glowweed, which is your other portion of, so you need glowweed for that immunity booster, which is something that you absolutely have to get at some point. So once you can grow this, great stuff. This is also a little more challenging to find, but once you find it, you will undoubtedly get a seed or 2, and then eventually you can get to the point of being able to harvest this to the point of actually being productive with seeds. But again, small seed, so every time you harvest you have to replant from a seed, unfortunately. Same with the glowweed here, or sorry, the dust firecracker here. Alright, so that pretty much outlines the entire ship, how it ended up. So in this case ended up with the 3 balloons, 5 wide, 14 long, and then eventually a lower deck. So that is pretty much the ship tour. So we'll conclude here. This is Kenty Tiger signing off, and we'll catch you next time.